We got a call up from the Phillies. Finally, they've called up a guy that was no 4A player or some marginal minor leaguer. They brought up one of their top prospects, and our Phillies Insider Frank Klose from 97.3 ESPN.com hinted that this might be the way. Maybe he didn't hint that this is the way they would go, but he thought this was the way they should go when he joined us on Tuesday's show, Frank. And today, Nick Williams, part of that Cole Hamels trade, is finally a big leaguer.
That's correct. It's funny. Phillies have been calling up the likes of Brock Stassi and adding Ty Kellys of the world, and now finally the fans get to see a prospect that they're excited about.
Give us a little, give the fans a little bit of knowledge on who this kid is. What can they expect? Why is he considered one of their top prospects?
Well, he's a left-handed bat, which is good. I think that's something that the Phillies really, really need. They hoped Michael Saunders would have been that, and then clearly he was not, so they had to move on from him. But he's a guy that's going to hit you about, I think in the major leagues he can hit 270, 280. He's got a little bit of a power in his bat. He's hit 15 home runs so far down in AAA with 15 or 16 doubles, I believe. So I think he's going to be the type of bat that will give them a solid number 5 hitter in their lineup that can hit a few home runs here and there, that can hit some doubles and can drive in some runs. So I think he's a very welcome addition to a club that needs somebody like that.
Nick Williams, 23 years old, so he's still a young kid. He was in that Hamels trade, so a lot of people have expectations for him. At this stage of the game, do you think that he is a little bit behind where you thought he'd be when they made that trade?
Well, it's hard to say. Like you just said, he still is pretty young. So I think what happens sometimes when we see trades like that, blockbuster trades where you lose your ace pitcher that's been the face of your franchise for a number of years, you kind of want immediate results. But I think they're doing okay with Williams. I think when we've spoken in recent times, I spoke about how the Phillies probably wanted to see him face a little bit more of that AAA pitching before they brought him up. I think in an ideal world, he'd be coming up maybe in a month or after the trade deadline, after they traded Saunders because he was performing well, which is not what happened. But I think he's just about ready. He might have some lumps in the major leagues, but he's about at the right age, I think. He's 23 going on 24. You don't want him to sit down there too long, but you don't want to bring him up too soon because you don't want to create a situation where perhaps his flaws he's still trying to work out as an up-and-comer or being ironed out at the major leagues. You don't want him to sort of become demoralized if he doesn't catch lightning right off the bat. But I think it's a good time. I think it was a little bit rushed because of their circumstances, but I think we would have seen him probably, if not at the trade deadline, then a month later as you went into September.
Now, Frank, is he here for the long term, or is this just a short-term deal?
Well, I wouldn't be shocked if they said to him, hey, look, we're going to get Howie Kendrick back eventually, and we might get Cesar Hernandez back as well. I think in that circumstance, if they had both players back and healthy, then he might go down to the minor leagues for a little bit until a spot is opened up by a trade or whatnot. But then again, you know what? As we've seen it happen before, he can sort of just claim a spot by some consistent play and just sort of take it over, like we saw Aaron Altair took over an outfield spot, even though they had a full outfield. So he'll have the opportunity to do that. But I think they probably would tell him as he comes in that, if they get back up to full strength and they have Kendrick and Hernandez both around, they don't want him to waste away on the bench, so they might send him back. But again, he can help force a decision like Altair forced a decision.
So like Mike said, this is the first name guy to come up, not a Ty Kelly of the world or one of the guys that doesn't seem to excite the fan base. Who do you think the next name would be then?
That's a very interesting question. Rhys Hoskins is probably the most polished, but then again, he's blocked by Tommy Joseph. I think if the Phillies either opened up first base, because of an unfortunate injury, or if they were able to make a trade for somebody like Joseph, I think they wouldn't hesitate to bring him up. But as long as he's blocked, they seem content to just sort of let him develop at AAA.
Frank Klose, 97.3 ESPN.com, at Frank Klose with a K on Twitter. And, of course, you can check out all of his work at sportstalkphilly.com. Frank, we also, you posted a story up, man, you guys have been busy with the Philly stuff recently here. Interesting news way down at the rookie to Williamsport level. First-round pick Adam Haseley already got a promotion.
Yeah, I think when they sent him to the Gulf Coast League, they were basically sending him down there just to get some workouts done in Clearwater. Now, to those who don't know, the Gulf Coast League is sort of the entry-level league. A lot of players that they sign internationally are in the draft. They often hang around after spring training, and then when spring training is over, they're still down there working out, and then this league opens up, usually right around the time of the draft. So what I think I think they had in mind for him was go down to Clearwater, spend a few days working out because when you're busy being drafted, you're not playing a lot of baseball. Get in shape, and then they sent him up to this short league season in Williamsport, which is a step below Class A, but it is indeed a nice challenge. And I've heard some people say that they think that he could even end up in Lakewood before the season's done. One thing about Haseley is that he's been through 3 years of college, so he's not the same as signing a player out of high school. So he could be a fast mover, or maybe he stays at the short season in Williamsport because, let's face it, he's not used to playing this many games in a season. So he could stay there for the whole season and call it a season, or who knows, maybe they'll even bump him up to Lakewood along the line.
Frank, there's also a bunch of Phillies minor leaguers being named to All-Star games. A pair of them will be in the Futures game during the All-Star break. Why don't you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so Scott Kingery, he's going to represent Team USA in the Futures game, which, to those who don't know, the day before the Major League Baseball All-Star game, they have a game which showcases some of the best talent in the systems throughout baseball, regardless of what level they are. So you'll see a lot of Class A, Class AA, and AAA players play in this game. So he, Kingery, and Rhys Hoskins are going to represent Team USA in the Futures game, and that's something that you'll be able to watch on MLB Network. So fans can get a little bit of glimpse of these players. And at AAA, they had 5 All-Stars. Now 4 of them are prospects. Pedro Beato happens to be leading minor league baseball in saves, so he made the team as well. But you'll see Hoskins at that level as well. You'll see the likes of Dylan Cousins in the outfield. Both of them having stellar seasons with the bat, and so they certainly are going to be all-stars for that level with the power that they've just been unleashing upon the league. And you also have Jorge Alfaro. Now, Alfaro is going to be a reserve catcher. His numbers don't totally excite you, but I think his prospect tag helped him make this particular all-star team that he otherwise might not have made. And by the way, one person at AAA that's not going to make an all-star team is our second baseman Scott Kingery, because guess what? He just got promoted, so he's not going to make the Eastern League All-Star game, and he's only had a few days at Lehigh Valley, so he kind of gets squeezed. But there's still a few All-Stars at Reading as well. Giandito Trump is an outfielder that's going to make the All-Star team, and he's an interesting guy. He probably would have seen that All-Star appearance go to Andrew Pullen, but he also got promoted to AAA. So, I could go on and on with all these system All-Stars. I don't think we have enough time in the Sports Bash, though.
Well, that's good news, though, the fact that there are a lot of players getting recognized and promoted, because the Major League product has been horrendous.
Abysmal, horrendous,
yes.
Awful.
But real quick from you, Frank, on Nick Williams, what is your kind of ceiling for him? What kind of pro player do you hope to see from Nick?
It's a great question. I think he could be perhaps a Raul Ibanez type bat in terms of output at his ceiling, but I think he's going to give you a little bit better defense than that. So he's made some outstanding plays in the outfield, and even in spring training, if you happen to catch it, I think down in Sarasota, he jumped the wall and robbed a home run from an Orioles player this spring, and he's had similar plays like that at AAA. So I think he's going to be a tremendous glove in the outfield, and in fact, a lot of the defense is really good in the Phillies system. So I think you're going to see a pretty stellar defensive team and offensive team with a lot of these guys and play to their potential.
Frank Klose, don't forget the mailbag. There is no show on Tuesday, so I guess maybe Wednesday will be the Tuesday mailbag this week. But you can get mailbag questions to Frank at Frank Klose with a K, and the guys will have the mailbag for you on Wednesday. I am off on Wednesday.
Yeah,
so,
Frank, I'm in charge of the mailbag, so we'll do our best on our end, buddy.
Frank, have a great...
His fresh new Twitter handle, too, right?
That's right.
You got to make sure everybody knows that.
At the PT973 on Twitter, and he's at Frank Klose with a K. And Frank, have a great weekend and a great 4th of July, man.
Thanks so much. Same to you guys.